Hot off the press, brand new today, it is the latest member of the Kentmere family, Kentmere Pan 200. This is a smooth, classic, mid-contrast, pan-chromatic black and white film. Perfect for creamy, dreamy street photos, sunlit portraits, and everything in between. I shot 2 rolls of this, one in my professional film camera, and one in a point-and-shoot, to test the point-and-shoot ability, and I have some thoughts on each. In this video, I'm gonna go over the specs of the film, what it is, what it costs, etc., and then I'm going to talk about my experience shooting with it, what worked, what didn't, and what I would recommend to you for your first roll. Finally, I'll talk a little bit about Kentmere, the brand, their history, and their relationship with Harman Technology and Ilford Photo. Throughout this video, I'll show you example photos, both edited and unedited, so that you can get a better idea of what to expect straight out of the camera, as well as after a few little tweaks. If that all sounds interesting to you, stick around. Remember to like this video if you like it, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more like it, and you can leave a comment letting me know what you think. Share any questions, concerns, queries, and stories that you might have. So, with all that said, and without further ado, let's jump right in and talk about specs. This is a 200. Does that sound nice? I bet you it sounds really nice. This is a 200 ISO black and white film. It comes in both 35mm and 120, and I believe that you can also buy bulk rolls. Here's a lovely updated picture of the whole Kentmere family. The 35mm cassettes are sold as either 24 exposure rolls or 36 exposure. Both the rolls I shot were 24 exposure. This film has a very wide exposure latitude. I actually messed up the first 4 photos in the roll that I shot on my professional camera because I metered them at 400 ISO instead of 200 ISO. The classic forgetting to adjust the metering after loading a new roll. And honestly, I couldn't even tell which photos I had messed up. The results were still really, really good. In fact, I didn't lose any shots to exposure issues across both rolls. And even the photos that came out a little bit wonky from the point and shoot were really easy to recover in post. This stock has a relatively fine grain structure and a pretty mid-range level of contrast. I edited a lot of my shots to be more contrasty, but that's definitely a matter of personal preference. This combo of fine grain structure and mid-range contrast means that this film is perfect for sunlit portraits. It really captures all of the details in the face properly, and it gives this nice, creamy tonal balance in sunlight. So, there's a lot of things to like about this film. One of them is definitely the price. I don't say this in film reviews very often. It's about $7 per roll for the 35mm, which is very consumer friendly. The 120 is a little more expensive, clocking in at about $9.50 per roll, but it's still quite affordable compared to other options out there. The difference between a 24 exposure roll and a 36 exposure roll is only about 50 cents, so get the 36 exposure roll, is my opinion. And this price accessibility is something that is really notable about the Kentmere films. Like, you can find them at big box retailers like London Drugs and Shoppers Drug Mart, and they don't cost an arm and a leg. And for this reason, I have shot a lot of Kentmere Pan 100. I'm sure most people watching, if you shoot black and white film, you've probably shot your fair share too. But despite that low price, it's still a really reliable film, so I've gotten some great photos with it, and when I heard that Kentmere 200 was on the horizon, I gave it one of these. Speaking of accessibility, Kentmere is sold pretty much everywhere that film is sold. Like, pick your favorite camera store and then go to their website and I guarantee they're selling Kentmere. It's very accessible. You could even click my affiliate link in the description below and buy some from Freestyle Photo LA. That really helps the channel and I appreciate everyone who does that. I would say that with this balance of quality, price, and availability, Kentmere Pan 200 is on the road to becoming the next Old Faithful film stock. Right now, my grab-and-go favorites are Kentmere Pan 100 and Ilford HP5, which is a 400 ISO film. So with this 200 ISO film, it's great to have something right in the middle. Sometimes 100 ISO can be a bit low if it isn't a super sunny day, but at 200 you can get some good shots even with cloud cover. This makes it a great choice for spring on the West Coast when you can never quite be sure what the weather's gonna do next. So, I think that is all for specs. Now, I would like to take some time and talk about my experience shooting with this film. I take my job seriously, okay? If I'm gonna test a roll, I'm gonna test that roll. I get some commenters being like, if you really wanted to test the roll, you would shoot the same object with every different shutter speed and then develop it in 4 different developers at 4 different developing times. No, that's boring. I don't think anyone's really interested in seeing that, and if you are, this is definitely not the channel for you. I had to put this film through its paces in a real working environment. So I shot my shots in a variety of conditions, using a bunch of different lighting and techniques and subjects. I tried to do something slightly different for each shot to give you as many different example conditions as possible. I shot outside in sun, outside in shade, inside with strobes, inside with window light, at f1.8 and f22, high contrast scenes, low contrast scenes, and a bunch in between. A few different lenses as well. I shot with a 50, a 10mm, and a 24-80. Couldn't tell you which focal length in there I used, but it was one of them. And finally, I shot a few frames with some fun filters. For this one, I used the Psycho Black Hole filter from SZ Filters, and for this one, I used the Star Effects filter from Prism Lens Effects. I also shot these, as I mentioned, on 2 different cameras. I used a fancy camera, Nikon F801S, as well as a point and shoot. So this is the Harman EZ35. I reviewed it quite a while back, and I haven't taken it out for a spin in quite some time, so it was nice to kind of break this out for a few shots. So lots to talk about here, but let's start with the point and shoot ability. I thought it would be a fun idea to use a point and shoot for one of these rolls because I know a lot of the people who are shooting Kentmere 100 and 400 for the first time are picking them up from their local drugstore and popping them into a point and shoot. The super wide exposure latitude also makes Kentmere a very point and shoot friendly family of films. Whoa, that was almost a tongue twister. Point and shoot friendly family of films. Point and shoot friendly family of films. If you're not a seasoned film photographer, but you do have a point and shoot and you just want something easy to shoot with for like a social function, this would be a very reasonable film to pick up. I wanted to make some example photos for that demographic, so here you go. Point and shoot ability. I took some multiple exposures with the point and shoot because I love that it is able to do that and I'm a dirty hipster who can't be stopped. And also because I kept forgetting to lock the shutter because I haven't used the point and shoot in a while and I kept accidentally taking pocket shots. So when I got to about frame 8, I decided to rewind the roll and go for a lucky round 2. Some of the multiple exposures are kind of funky, although I think a higher contrast film would have given better results for a few of them. I did crank the contrast in post and overall I'm fairly satisfied. My key takeaway from the point and shoot shots is that the exposure latitude is really coming in clutch. Like, shooting 200 ISO film in a camera like this can be a risky choice. Usually you would want to go for a 400 or an 800 ISO film. But Kentmere Pan 200 manages no problem. It wasn't super blown out on sunny days, and even in really high contrast settings like this alleyway creative shoot, you still get detail in both the highlights and the shadows. This is really exceptional, especially without any kind of metering involved. The fine grain structure of this film also helps to compensate for the plastic lens of a point and shoot. We have a little bit of distortion from the plastic, but you can still clearly see details, and I think that's a real strength of this film. So I do think it's a good choice for these cameras. Moving on to the shots that I took with my professional camera, lots of portraits and fashion type stuff. I really preferred the outdoor, naturally lit shots to the strobe lit shots. I've actually seen this a bit in other reviews about Kentmere. It just soaks up the sun so much better than the bulbs. It did pretty well in high contrast lighting situations, so super bright sunlight and then really harsh shadows, but I really preferred the shots that were taken in shade and overcast lighting because you get this creamy lower contrast that is really flattering for portraits. One of my favorite shots from both rolls was this one, which was taken with the Starburst FX filter. It creates this halation/diffusion effect around the model's skin, and with the fine grain structure, this looks really smooth and classic. I'm gonna keep this in mind for future rolls, and I'll probably shoot a bunch more frames with a diffusion filter at some point because it just looks really good. As for the studio shots, I wasn't a huge fan of these two, I think because it lacks strong contrast. Like, I really wanted this setup to be punchy, black and white, you know what I mean? And this was just not the right film for that. Probably a different lighting setup would have worked better, but why bother? Like, just go outside and shoot your portraits outside and they will look great. I did get this fun shot with the strobe lighting though. It is a 7 times multiple exposure of my friend's dog and I. And this was the kind of shot that is really easy to screw up if you're not paying attention to exposure, but luckily this film is really forgiving of exposure screw up, so it still worked really well. I also took this one as like a last of the roll, let's try something moment, and I kind of screwed it up in other ways, but the exposure looks good nonetheless. So overall, for multiple exposures, I can say that this film layers really nicely with no surprises. You might have to play with the contrast a bit in post, but you can get some great results with a little effort. I think that is pretty much everything that I had to say about my experience. So now let's move on to the final section of this video, which I have titled Kentmere, in which I will talk about the Kentmere brand and its history. The makers of Kentmere have been producing photographic film for a little over a century at this point. It started at the turn of the last century when 2 friends formed a partnership under the name R.H. Blake & Company and began manufacturing photographic film. As the coating business grew, they decided to start producing their own paper, so they bought a paper mill in Staveley in 1906. Thus, the Commercial Photo Co. was born. But 2 years later, it was renamed Kentmere Limited. The company then faced issues purchasing boxes for packaging their photographic papers, so they started making their own boxes in 1909, which eventually developed into a full-blown business making packaging materials. Apparently, the Kentmere brand is still making packaging materials today as Kentmere Packaging, but that's owned by a completely different company, because at some point the brand was split into Kentmere Photographic Limited and Kentmere Packaging Limited, and I can't find much info on when that was, but if you know, Let me know in the comment section below. So there's a pretty big period of time where I couldn't find much info about Kentmere. There is a timeline here from Analog Wonderland's article on the history of Kentmere, but I don't 100% trust it because they got the origin story wrong. Like, they mixed up the Kentmere origin story with the Ilford origin story, and it made the research for this section of the video very confusing. So I don't have a whole lot of reliable information on Kentmere Photographic until 2007, when Kentmere Photographic was acquired by Harman Technology. Yes, the very same Harman of Phoenix fame, and of the Harman EZ35, which also owns the Ilford brand. So if you've ever been confused about the relationship between Ilford Photo, Harman, and Kentmere, they are all in the same family of brands owned by Harman Technology. And fun fact, Harman Technology today is a new version of Ilford that was created in 2005 when the company, Ilford Photo, was bought by its former managers. And Harman is named after Alfred Harman, who founded the original Britannia Works Limited, which was later renamed Ilford after the town where the products were being manufactured. So Ilford was started by Harman, had a great time through the 20th century, and then began to decline in the 90s and early 2000s, and was bought by its own managers and renamed Harman Technology, which then also bought Kentmere Photographic in 2007. Lots of fun and complicated history here. I find it all pretty interesting, and hopefully you do too. But alas, that is everything that I had to say in today's video. Thank you all for watching. I hope this video was informative, or at least entertaining. I want to give a shout out to the folks over at Harman Technology for sending me some rolls to test out. Really appreciate that. It was a lot of fun. They also sent me 2 rolls of 120, but my Yashica has a shutter issue and is down for maintenance. I really need to get it fixed. It's very sad, but possibly I will make another video about the 120 version of this film once my medium format camera is fixed. Also, if you know a great spot in Vancouver where I can get my medium format camera fixed, let me know. Leave a comment or send me a DM or something. Thank you. I have a new video coming out next week. I think it's going to be called 20 film photography questions in 20 minutes. So if you have any burning questions you'd like me to answer, leave them in the comment section below also. I've already got 20, but some of them aren't very good, so I would replace them with better ones if you had better ones. So I'll see all of you guys then. In the meantime, don't forget to like, to subscribe, turn on notifications, and of course, stay sharp. And don't forget to keep shooting. Bye, guys.